All right, everybody be seated. So the way the trial proceeds is the state presents their case. They've presented their case and now rested. The defense is now entitled to present anything they desire to present, and then the state has an opportunity to present rebuttal testimony if they wish to present rebuttal testimony. So we're now into the defense case. You may call your first witness, Mr. Prince.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense will call Henry Segura.
All right. Come forward, please, Mr. Segura. You face the clerk and be sworn, please.
I swear affirm testimony about giving this case to be true, the whole truth, and nothing but true, so help me God.
Yes, ma'am. Have a seat. Slide up the rail, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Segura, can you please state and spell both your first and last name for the court reporter?
Henry Segura, Henry Segura.
And you have two prior convictions for misdemeanors involving fraud or dishonesty?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just for clarity's sake, you're not a convicted felon, though, so you're you're lawfully allowed to possess firearms, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's something that you would ordinarily do on jobs when you travel all over and do your welding jobs, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll go into that in a little more detail in a minute. Let's start back in 2010. What were you doing for a living back then?
I was a welder.
Okay. How long had you been?
Keep your voice up, Mr. Segura. That's fine.
Okay.
Put the microphone up too high. We're going to get a squeal back. So
Okay.
get a little closer if you can.
All right.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. You said you were working as a welder back then?
Yes, sir.
How long had you been doing that?
About 15 years or so, I guess.
Okay. And were you an employee of a specific company, or were you like an independent contractor?
I work with different companies.
Okay. So would you travel around or stay in one place?
We traveled from state to state.
Okay. So you're never in one place very long?
No, sir.
Okay. What about that, when you were in Minnesota, back when you were initially arrested on the case, what were you doing there?
I was working at I think it was a sand plant. They was recycling sand.
Mm-hmm.
I was a welder on that job.
Okay. Was it at all unique for you to be in Minnesota, Washington, California, wherever?
No, I've traveled from Maine, Washington State, New York, Texas, North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, all over the state.
Okay. And how did you get work exactly?
Mostly by word of mouth, sometimes through the internet.
Okay. And were you required to have any licenses or certifications in order to do those jobs?
No, sir.
Okay. And that includes when you were doing jobs in the state of Florida, correct?
No, sir. No, I didn't need a license. I just took a welding test when I got to the job, and they certified me once I passed the welding test and a drug test.
Okay. Now, were you married back in 2010?
Yes, sir.
And who were you married to?
Malika Segura.
And how long had y'all been married at that point?
I think about 10 years.
And did you and Malika have any children together?
Yes, sir.
Who were those?
Malachi, Henry Segura III, and Javante Segura, but he had passed away like a year before.
Jalik, you mean had passed away?
I mean Javante, yeah. I mean Jalik. Yeah.
Had passed away before Javante?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So kind of explain for us, if you can, what the dynamic in your marriage had been with Malika, both prior to Jalik's death, your premature son, and then following Jalik's death.
I had got caught cheating a lot. I've had a couple of kids outside of my marriage. It made our marriage go up and down a whole lot. I made a bunch of promises that I wouldn't cheat anymore. Once our son Jalik died, I made a promise to her that I wouldn't cheat on her anymore, and I tried to not get caught. I actually started cheating back after a few months or so that I made that promise to her, but I tried harder to not get caught, I guess you could say.
And why was that an event that would trigger you specifically to want to change your behavior as it related to cheating on your wife?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, what was it about Julie passing that made you specifically think that it was appropriate for you to change your behavior relative to cheating on Malika?
I don't know. At first, I made a promise. I made a promise to God first. I was working in Crystal River, and Malika called me and said that the doctors called and said that we had to get all the family together because Jalik might not make it through the night. I was on the road coming home. I had a girl out of town with me at the time, as a matter of fact. I got her in the car with me. We came down to Tallahassee. We went to the hospital. And on the way, I told God, I said, if you let my son make it through the night, I won't cheat on my wife again. And he ended up making it through the night. He lived to be 11 months old. And I believe when he was 8 to 9 months old is when I started back cheating on my wife.
Okay. And how did he pass away?
He died in his sleep due to breathing complications.
Was that something that had been an issue since he was born prematurely?
Yes, sir. His lungs were not fully developed.
Okay. Let me shift gears a little bit and ask you about Brandy. How did you meet her?
I met her at a gas station in Tallahassee.
And how did that interaction proceed? How was it that you guys started talking to each other and seeing each other ultimately?
Well, I met her at a gas station across from the fairgrounds, and I got her phone number. We started talking on the phone occasionally at night. We had a sexual encounter, and we ended up moving in with each other after that.
You're still married to Malika during that time when you and Brandy lived together, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so how did that work?
Me and Malika had just moved back to Tallahassee from Sanford, and we were looking for a house. And in the process of looking for a house, she was living with her mother in Gaston County in Quincy, and I was supposed to be living with mine here in Tallahassee. Instead of me staying at my mother's house every night, I would spend most nights at Brandy's house.
Okay. Did Brandy have the twins at that time?
Yes, sir. They were around 2 at the time when I met her.
Tanai and Tamaya, right?
Yes.
Okay. How long did you and Brandy stay together?
We stayed together. Javante was like 4 or 5 months when I left and started. About 18 months total, probably altogether.
Okay. And
From before Javante was born up until when he was born.
You can't have that. Right, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Mr. Segura. You were talking about.
It was probably 18 months total from the time I moved in with her up until Javante was like 4 or 5 months.
So Javante was born during the time that you and Brandy were together.
Yes.
Okay. How long had you all been together when Brandy got pregnant?
8 or 9 months.
And when Javante was born, you believed he was your son?
Yes. Yeah, I was at the hospital with her. Signed a birth certificate. I was the whole night.
Okay. How, if at all, did you provide for Javante during the time that you were still with Brandy?
Whenever me and Brandy was together, I brought Pampers, brought clothes. I stayed home with him, watched him when I could, whenever I wasn't working. Just whatever it was the father was supposed to do at the time, I was there.
Okay. The twins were approximately how old when Javante was born?
I believe they were around 3.
Okay. And what was your relationship with the twins?
They were more like my kids than Javante because I spent more time with them before he was born.
Okay.
I potty trained them. When I first met her, they were wearing pull-ups. I got them out of pull-ups and potty trained them so they were wearing panties. I cooked for them. I brought them to school. Picked them up whenever the van didn't bring them home. I was just being a father figure.
Okay. And how long did you remain with Brandy after Javante was born?
Like I say, till he was like 4 or 5 months.
And what happened at that point?
At that point, I started back working out of town, and our relationship kind of faltered then because I think I went to Colorado. I stayed in Colorado for like 5 or 6 months, and that's when me and her stopped communicating as much.
You and Brandy stopped communicating?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did there arise a question about whether Javante was in fact your son?
Yes, sir.
And how did that come up?
That came up mostly on weekends because, I would spend most nights at her house. But on the weekends, me and my wife was looking for a house. So if I told Brandy I was coming home or I was coming back or then I wouldn't make it back, she'd get upset and be like, well, you know what, you just spend time with your family. Javante got another daddy anyway. Just something, little sly remarks like that.
Okay. So that's when you started questioning whether he was actually your son?
Yes.
And so how did your relationship, if there was any after that, proceed with Javante?
I kind of fell back from Brandy, so to speak. So I didn't really spend as much time with Javante or the twins like I used to. After those incidents that me and Brandy were having together, most of our encounters were just sexual. Like I would come by, we'd have sex.
And why did you let your relationship with Javante, I don't know what the right way to describe it is, but kind of lapse? Why weren't you involved with him like you were with your other kids after that?
It was kind of hard. I was always gone. She was, lived on one side of town. My wife was on one side of town, and I couldn't be there as much as I wanted to, or as much as I should have been. And once I came back in town from working, I had so much stuff at home I had to try to catch up on. So it was kind of hard for me to spend a whole lot of time over at Brandy's, and I just really didn't have time.
Okay. At some point after, well, let me clarify this first, I guess. All the stuff that you've been talking about, you living with Brandy and her becoming pregnant with Javante, that was all prior to Jalik's passing?
Yes. When Jalik passed, we had already brought the house.
Okay. And so, was Malika aware of your relationship with Brandy, and was she aware of Javante?
Yes, sir. At some point, she did find out about Brandy and Javante.
Okay. That wasn't the first time you got caught cheating?
No, sir.
That had been a problem throughout your marriage?
Yes, sir. Probably from the first year of our marriage.
And that's your main vice, right? You make no bones about that. You were
That's
a cheater,
right.
A philanderer, all
Most
that.
people smoke crack or do heroin. That's my drug of choice. I don't drink. I don't smoke. Do any drugs. That was my drug of choice. I'm not proud of it, but that's what I did.
Okay. At some point after that, by which I mean at some point after you and Brandy separated and you and Malika got a house here in Tallahassee, did child support for Javante become an issue?
Yes, sir.
And how did that go?
Okay, so first of all, I went down to the what was it? It was on North Monroe, across from the Tallahassee Mall at the time. I went down there and signed the paperwork to put myself on child support. At one point, I was giving Brandy cash money. Every time I go over there, she needs some money. So I told her, I'm not giving you no more money. You keep saying Javante is not mine. I'm not giving you no more money. So that's why I put myself on child support. Now, once I put myself on child support, she wouldn't fill the paper. She wouldn't sign the paper stating to go forward with the child support. So she went back and I guess she went back and did the paperwork, and I didn't know she did it. I don't know. But I went up there twice and filled it out myself to put myself on child support so that I can stop giving her the cash that I was giving her and then the money orders.
Now, do you know with certainty who filed what first?
I know I'm positive I filed it first, 2 times.
Okay. And why did you have to file 2 times?
Because the first time she told me she wasn't finna sign no paperwork. I need to just take care of Javante like I've been doing. And I said, no, I'm putting myself on child support. So she wouldn't sign it. So I went back and I did the paperwork again. Matter of fact, the reason I went back the second time is because she told the first paperwork I gave her up, while she received up.
Okay. Did the issue of whether you were going to formally pay child support remain an issue with Brandy, or were you guys ever able to solve the issue on your own?
I'm going to say it remained an issue, but we were able to solve it at the same time. Because, I can tell her, hey, look, I'm going to give you some money on the first. I'll give you some money on the, whenever I go to this next job. Mm-hmm. And she would listen to me, she'd go for it. And then, that'll buy me some time or whatever. So it went either way with her.
Okay.
She'd get mad when I tell her I'm coming to do X, Y, and Z. When I didn't do it, then she'd get real upset. So I just calm her back down.
Okay. So at some point you started receiving letters from the Department of Financial Services about child support, a formal child support order being set up. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you at all familiar with that process?
No.
The process by which the Department of Financial Services administers payment of child support and requires payment of child support?
Yes, sir. I was very familiar with it. For I had a daughter at the time that was like 4 or 5, and my daughter was in Orlando, and that's one of the reasons why we moved back to Tallahassee, because I had a child in Orlando and my wife moved back here. But during the child support proceedings and with my daughter, I went to jail. I got my driver's license suspended. I had to pay a bunch of money to get out of jail before they would to go towards the child support. And I met this guy who was telling me, he said, look, all you have to do is you pay X amount of dollars towards whatever they're telling you have to pay, and they won't suspend your license, and they won't put you in jail. You don't have to worry about anything.
And so that process was with your daughter, Janae, correct?
Yes, sir.
Janae's mother is Tomica Hawkins?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so Tomica had gone through the exact same process that you were starting to describe for Brandy, right?
Yes, sir.
That would have been back in 2006?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did at some point Tomica, I guess this is implicit from your prior description, but did Tomica at some point get an actual child support judgment against you?
Yes, sir.
And what was the amount roughly of that child support judgment?
It was in the 20s. It was 27,000 or more, somewhere around that area.
Basically the same
It was
amount.
the same exact thing, because Janae was 3 years old at the time.
Okay. Now, you've been here the whole time. You heard testimony about the various consequences that can come into play due to non-payment of child support, and you just started to describe a couple of those. At some point, Tomica did in fact have you put in jail for failure to pay, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were able to solve that problem
Yes, sir.
by making partial payment?
Yes, sir.
And it was the same thing with your driver's license?
Yes, sir.
What about your ability to work? Did the child support judgment obtained by Tomica impact your ability to continue welding?
No, sir. It didn't, because I worked from state to state. Sometimes I worked under the table. I stayed working. I just didn't, do the main jobs that I wanted to do, probably, like some jobs in Florida and Crystal River area, where it would be easier for the state of Florida to garnish your wages or something like that.
So you had basically figured out a way around having to worry about your paycheck being garnished, right?
Yes.
Did Tomica ever obtain a tax lien such that if you had any tax refund owed at the end of the year, that it would be intercepted by the state of Florida and given to Tomica?
Yes, sir. She gets my taxes. If I have to file for taxes right now, she gets them.
Okay, that judgment is still in place now.
Yes, sir. It's still in place.
So you were already prohibited from being able to travel internationally prior to this child support judgment, Brandy's child support judgment being imposed, correct?
Oh, yes, sir.
Had you at any point prior to Brandy obtaining a child support judgment against you attempted to travel internationally by obtaining a passport?
No, actually, my sister got married in the Bahamas, and I tried to get a passport to go there, and I couldn't.
When was that?
I don't remember what year it was. It was before all this happened, way before all this happened.
Prior to the murders?
Yeah, it was way before all this happened.
Okay. So you were already aware that you couldn't get a passport and travel
yes, sir.
because of the child support judgment from
Yes.
Tomica?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about, well, I guess let me ask you this. So at some point you get notified that there's going to be a second child support judgment against you, right?
Yes, sir.
What was your plan for dealing with that?
With Brandy and Javante, it was a little bit different from when I had a judgment against me with Tomica. With Brandy and Javante, I lived in the house with her. I was with her when Javante was born. I had receipts of the money orders when I gave her cash for the money with the money orders. I had receipts for clothes and all the clothes I brought him, Pampers I brought him. So that would have proved and showed to the judge that I was in his life from the day he was born up until the 3 years when she put me on the child support, when the paperwork came through. So that would have reduced the $20,000 arrears that they tried to put on me drastically.
And how far did it reduce it? Didn't it go down to 8,000 or 9,000 or so?
No, with Tomica it did, yes. But I'm saying with Brandy, I didn't never had a chance to go to court.
Okay. Did you plan to at some point go to court?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just-
what would you have hoped to accomplish by going to court?
Like I said, I would have gotten it all reduced because I had the money order receipts. I had receipts for Pampers. I had receipts for all the clothes and stuff I had brought. I even paid her rent a couple times. It was real cheap because she was on Section 8, but I even had receipts when I paid that.
Did you have any knowledge that because Brandy was Section 8, regardless of whether she pushed the issue of child support, DFS was still going to enforce the order? Did you know about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As that process proceeded, as Brandy's child support judgment process proceeded, did you take steps to deal with that, or had you not gotten to that point?
Repeat that.
Like, had you done anything besides going up there twice to a DFS office and filing documentation? Had you done anything beyond that to attempt to reduce the lien, reduce the payments, anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. That was just your plan?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Was there any difference in the way that you planned to deal with Brandy's judgment as opposed to Tomica's judgment?
Yes. Like I said, I was dealing to put in a petition to the court and bring in all of my receipts and all of this other information that I had that would bring the arrears down from the $20,000 that they tried to say I owed to whatever amount it would be.
So you had documentation that you believe could potentially result in Brandy's judgment being reduced?
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, but you hadn't gotten around to raising that issue prior to her murder?
Right.
Okay. I mean, how concerned were you about Brandy's child support judgment once you found out about it?
Not concerned at all. That was my whole plan. I was looking forward to it coming. Like I said, I haven't even had a chance to make the first payment before her and Javante were killed.
Okay. What kind of financial situation were you in around the time that Brandy got that child support judgment against you?
I really wasn't in a good financial statement. I was out of work for about a month or so. I had just got shot, and so I was kind of behind on bills and stuff.
Okay. So did you plan to address Brandy's child support judgment once you got back up on your feet and started working regularly and all that again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, with Tomica, after she got you put in jail the one time and had your license suspended, your driver's license suspended, did you ever get sent back to jail or get your driver's license resuspended, or had you figured out how to work around that?
No, sir. Like I said, once you just make a partial payment on whatever they're trying to, whatever they're attempting to get out of you, then they won't suspend your license. You won't have to go back to jail. So, like Tomica, for instance, I think I had to pay $130 a week. Some weeks I didn't pay the whole $130, so I paid partial, and that was good enough.
Okay, so after you were initially put in custody and your driver's license was suspended, you were able to navigate the system and avoid those consequences popping back up, even when you weren't paying the amount that you were supposed to pay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's talk about how things started back up with Brandy. We saw text messages from the week of the murder where she was talking about having you put in jail and all that. Were those text messages sent to you from Brandy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was your plan for dealing with those?
Like I said, I had receipts. I had all this information that would, once I went to court, I could have showed it to the judge, and it would have been proof that,
Well, I should be more.
Oh, no, okay, I got you talking about,
Sorry.
So she wouldn't throw me in jail.
Yeah, I mean, as it relates to Brandy specifically, we've talked about what you plan to do legally about the child support judgment. Were you, I guess let me ask this first, were you and Brandy still talking at that time?
We wasn't in a relationship. We had like a sexual relationship mostly, but we didn't really talk a whole lot.
But it had been a while since y'all hooked up, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as of the time of the murders, save the incident that happened on the day of the murder, you and Brandy had not been in a continuous sexual relationship, right?
We had a sexual relationship, but it wasn't continuous. It was off and on. Like, if I was to go out of town to work, sometimes I'd stop by her house. Sometimes if I was on the way home from work, I'd stop by her house. So it wasn't no steady thing, but it was off and on.
Okay. Now, in the year and a half or so after Jalik passed away, had Malika ever caught you cheating with Brandy or anybody else?
No, sir.
So as far as Malika was aware, at that point, you were still honoring your promise that you made following Jalik's passing?
Yes.
Okay. But you were cheating on her at that time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Hadn't been caught yet?
No, sir.
Were you still trying to make your marriage with Malika work at that point?
At the point, right when my son Jalik died, yes.
Okay. And you continued to do so?
Yes.
I mean, at least to the extent that you hid your affairs and didn't do it kind of out.
I actually tried to make my marriage work all the way up until I was in Minnesota working.
Mm-hmm. What happened when you were in Minnesota?
I rekindled a relationship with a friend of mine from school, from back in middle school.
And you decided at that point you wanted to be with her?
Yes.
So we're talking about now fall of 2011, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So a year after the murders?
Yes.
You hadn't been charged yet at that point, correct?
No, no, sir.
Okay. So that phone call we heard, was that after you were taken into custody in Minnesota?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we hear you talking about on there that you feel like you had given up your life for Malika at that point. What did you mean when you said that?
Well, I feel like I did because she say all she ever done for me and this, that, and the third. But if I would have just told the police in the police interview that, yeah, I cheated on my wife, I talked to this girl, that girl, that girl, then I wouldn't be in the situation I was in. I wouldn't be here now. If I would have just told them I cheated on my wife instead of trying to protect our marriage.
Okay. Now, the week of the murder, you indicated you received those text messages from Brandy. What did you do when you received those?
I forwarded them to my wife.
Why'd you do that?
So it can let her see that I got a good excuse to go over there and talk to Brandy.
Okay. So did you, in fact, end up doing that?
Yes, sir.
Was that on Wednesday like we saw with the
yes,
phone
it was
records?
on Wednesday.
Okay. So how did it go on Wednesday when you went over there?
It went good. I talked to her. I cooled her down, let her know that, I think that's when I told her that I had got shot. And I told her, I haven't been working steady as I normally do. I told her once I get back on my long-term jobs, I'll be able to give you some more money or start giving you more money on a regular basis. And that was that.
So based on that interaction, how, if at all, did Brandy's tone and attitude change about the situation?
It changed drastically. It did a 180 like it always does.
Okay. So when you left Wednesday, y'all were on fine terms at that point?
Yes, sir.
You kind of cooled her down and she was fine at that point?
Yes.
Did you receive a text message from her the next day?
Yes, sir. She stated that if I wasn't her baby daddy, she would have gave me some. LOL.
And what did you think when you got that text message? What were you thinking about?
I was thinking that, back to like it used to be, fight, make up. It was a makeup text, what I considered it as.
Okay.
So I waited a few minutes, I called her and, I tried to make plans to come over that day, but she had something going on, so we made plans for me to come over the next day.
Friday?
Yes.
The 19th, okay. Did you and Brandy talk at all on Friday?
Yes, sir.
Now, you were at home during the morning that day, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so how long whenever that was, when you and Brandy talked to each other, how long did you talk to her for?
We talked for about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. And did you all have a plan based on that conversation about when you were going to come over?
Yes. She told me to come by sometime that afternoon. So we made plans for me to come by sometime that afternoon, once she got the kids or whatever.
So at some point, did you head up into town from Woodville to where Brandy lived at?
Yeah.
When was that, roughly?
Sometime around 2 o'clock.
In the afternoon?
Around 2, yeah.
Had you gone there before that?
No, sir.
Okay. So you think around 2 o'clock. Was Brandy there when you got there the first time?
No, sir.
Did you have any communication with her?
Yeah, I called her to find out where she was, what was going on, and she said she was with her mother riding around. They were going to pick the girls up and then head back to the house. So I went.
Now, when you were waiting for her to get back, did you go anywhere in the meantime?
Yeah, I went to my sister's house.
Sean's house?
Yes, sir.
Sean Segura?
Yes.
Was that the Gale Street address that we saw with Investigator Corbett, Sergeant Corbett?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So your sister lived right over there near Brandy?
Yeah, she lived right around the corner from me.
Okay. So how long did you go to Sean's house for while you were waiting for Brandy to get home?
Probably it was around 1-ish, 2 o'clock, so I don't know, a couple of hours.
Okay. When were you supposed to come back to meet up with Brandy?
Well, originally, like I said, we talked about me coming before when she got the girls from school. But I tried to make it over there before she picked the girls up. So, which she normally get the girls around 2:50, 3 o'clock. So I went back to my sister's house, and around 3 o'clock is when I headed back towards her house, because I knew that's about time she should be home with the girls.
And what vehicle were you driving when you went over there?
My truck.
Your green pickup truck?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what that looks like?
Yes, it's a green Chevy step-side Silverado 94, 95. Had some gold 22-inch rims, had a big spoiler on the back, big fiberglass flatbed on the back.
So a fairly distinctive
Spoiler
vehicle.
on the front. Yeah.
Okay. When you got back over there, what time did you say it was when you came back the second time?
When I went back to Brandy's,
Yeah.
it was around 3 o'clock.
Okay. What happened when you got back there the second time?
I parked my truck at the church near her house.
Why'd you do that?
Because I didn't want to park right in front of her house so that any neighbor that knew my wife or whatever would see my truck at her house. And it might rat me out.
What, if any, phones did you have with you at that point?
I had my cell phone that my wife didn't know about with me.
And what was that phone for?
So when I was talking to girls or communicating with females and stuff like that.
Did Brandy know you had that? I'm sorry, did Malika know you had that phone?
No, sir.
And there were no communications from Brandy to that phone. Did Brandy have that number, the 408 number?
No, I didn't give her that number. She just had my
Your main number?
My main number, yeah.
I'm sorry, the 509 number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why didn't you give Brandy your 408 number?
She liked to call too much. If I didn't answer the phone, she gonna call until I pick it up.
Basically.
I didn't want to have her calling while I was with another female, and the phone just continued to ring. So.
And that was the phone that you would use when you were with other females, the 408 one?
Yes, sir.
That's what it was for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Every time you ever communicated with Brandy on that phone, did you use the star 67 so that she wouldn't have your number based on the call?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was for the same reason you just described?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you indicated you parked your truck at the church. What happened next?
I parked that truck. I walked down to Brandy's house, and when I got to the corner to make a left to go to her house, I noticed her mother's truck was still in the yard or whatever. So
Okay.
I went back to my truck, sat in the truck. I listened to some music, watched some videos on my TV, and
Why couldn't you go over there and just wait with her while her mom was there?
well, her mother knew that I was married, and I felt like she had an issue with the type of relationship me and Brandy had.
She didn't approve of it? The extramarital deal?
No, sir.
And when I say she, I'm talking about Brandy's mom.
Right. No, sir.
So you didn't want to be there, given that fact, with Brandy's mom present?
No, sir.
Okay. So you said you went back to your vehicle. How long were you back in your vehicle for before Brandy's mom left?
Probably hour or so, a little more. I waited until I seen her mother's truck leave.
Okay. What did you do at that point?
I walked back down the hill, walked to her house, got to the corner, made a left, I cut through the neighbor's yard and went in the house.
Do you know about what time that would have been?
It was close to 5 o'clock, I believe.
Okay. And how long did it take for you and Brandy to hook up?
Not long, about 15, 20 minutes.
And did you utilize any kind of prophylactic?
Yes, sir, I used the condom.
Okay. What was done with the condom and that stuff after y'all had completed your activities?
She threw it in the toilet. I believe she threw it in the toilet. She took it off of me with a paper towel. She went in the bathroom. I heard the toilet flush, so I assumed she threw it in the toilet.
Were the kids home while this was going on?
No, they were across the street playing, like, in between the two houses.
Did you see them when you walked up to Brandy's house?
Yes, sir.
Did they see you?
No, sir.
What were they doing that, if you know, prevented them from seeing you?
They were, the way the houses were set up, it was a house here and one here, and they were in between the two houses, playing in between the two houses with some other kids.
So they were focused on other kids just playing and stuff, and they didn't see you walk up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where did you and Brandy have sex at?
On the bed, in the bedroom.
Her bed?
Yes.
Okay. After that wrapped up, what happened next?
We went in the living room and watched television. Let's see, she called the kids in. The kids came in. I tried to spend a little time with Javante, trying to interact with him a little bit. The girls went back outside to play.
Okay. At some point, did the three kids go across the street to eat the oxtail soup that the neighbor was making, or stew, whatever it was?
Yes, eventually.
Okay. About what time was that at, you think?
Man, 7-ish.
Okay. When the girls came home, well, I guess it would have been all three. When the kids came home after eating the stew over at the neighbor's house, did they bring any for Brandy?
Yes, I think it was Tomica. One of the twins brought Brandy a plate home.
Okay. Did Brandy eat that when you were still there?
Yes.
Okay.
She tried to give me some, but I didn't look like anything I wanted to eat.
About what time, as best you can recollect, would it have been that Brandy ate that oxtail stew?
I'm guessing about 7:45, because it was close to time I was getting ready to leave. About 7:30 probably.
And what were y'all doing after the kids came back over?
Nothing. We was watching television, talking in the living room.
And who all was out in the living room watching TV?
Me and Javante and Brandy.
Where were the twins at?
They were across the street playing.
Did they come back at some point?
Yes, they did. They came back. One of the twins came back. One of the twins came back and brought Brandy the food. When she brought Brandy the food, her and Javante left and went back across the street to play.
So
I'm
sorry. So for the last little bit of time that you were there at Brandy's house, it was just you and her again?
Well, no, not the last little bit of time, but for a percentage of the time, it was just me and her. She got the kids back in. The kids came in, and then all of us were sitting there. Well, the girls went. First, they were in the living room. Then they went back to the back somewhere, and it was just me, Brandy, and Javante. And then eventually, Javante left, and I told Brandy I had to go. And she told me she had somebody coming, but I need to get. She made some sly remark. I got company coming anyway. You need to leave anyway, nigga. Something like that.
Okay. Was there a time when you were there with Brandy that she was on the phone for an extended period of time?
Yeah, whenever me and Javante was sitting in the living room, and when the girls was outside and me and Javante were in the living room, she was on the phone.
Okay. So you were just kind of hanging out with Javante at that
Right.
point?
Like I said, I was trying to interact with Javante. She was on the phone then.
At any point during that interaction, were you utilizing your phone?
I checked my email and stuff like that, yes.
Okay. Were you talking on the phone with anybody, or just checking email
the data,
and things of that nature?
Just checking the data and stuff. Checking the email and text messages.
Okay. About what time did you end up leaving Brandy's house that day?
It was about 8 o'clock, 8:15, somewhere around there.
And so what did you do when you left Brandy's house?
I went home.
You went home from there?
Yes.
How did you travel home?
I left her house, went back up the hill, got in my truck at the church, and drove. I got to Paul Russell, made a left, and I think I took a left on, what is it?
Is that Woodville Highway?
Woodville Highway, and go all the way down into Woodville.
Where you live? You live down at
Yeah.
Woodville. Okay. At any point after you got back down home to Woodville that evening, did you go back out for any reason?
Yes, I went to the gas station. Like, it's a gas station in between Capitol Circle and Oak Ridge Road where I live. And I went there to buy me something to drink, a Mountain Dew. But when I got halfway there, I realized that I had left my wallet on the kitchen counter. And I turned around and ended up getting some Kool-Aid instead of the Mountain Dew I wanted. Sweet tea, actually.
Where was that at? Where did you go? Like, where was that relative to your house?
Oh, it was, I think it was Highway 61 and Woodville Highway where they meet at. When I got down to that point, I realized my wallet. Well, actually, I realized a little bit before that. But when I got to that point is where I made the U-turn at.
Okay. Then you went back home after that?
Yes, sir.
You remained home for the rest of the evening?
Yes, sir.
Who else was home when you were there?
Malika, my 2 sons.
What were they doing?
Malika was in the room. She was laying down. Malachi and Trey was in the living room watching television. We watched a movie together.
Okay. Were you utilizing your 408 phone during that time period, the time period after you arrived back home?
Yeah, I was still texting one of my girlfriends at the time,
Who was that?
Natasha.
And what was you said she's a girlfriend. What was your relationship with her at that time, with Natasha?
She was my girlfriend.
Okay. Now, we saw with the state's evidence that there were a bunch of deleted texts. Why were those texts deleted?
Mainly because I didn't want Malika going through my phone and rereading everything and getting all mad about this and that again. So I just erased all of it. Anything had to do with Brandy, I tried to keep it out of my phones.
That text message that Brandy sent you on Thursday, talking about she would have given you some, you look good. Did you delete that one as well?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about this as well. Yesterday, there was some talk about text pertaining to white Monte Carlo.
Oh, yes, sir.
Did you have in your possession a white Monte Carlo around that time?
Yes, sir.
And the text messages referred to getting rid of it. When did you come to realize that you needed to get rid of the white Monte Carlo?
I think when I interviewed the police, I felt like they were looking at me as a suspect. The type of questioning that they were giving me. So I didn't want them snooping around my house because the Monte Carlo was stolen.
And so how did that go? How did you come to be in possession of a stolen vehicle?
I met a guy who had a car. I brought it from him. I knew it was stolen when I brought it, but it was a real nice car and good. It was in good shape, and I got it for real cheap.
So you're in possession of a stolen vehicle. Who was it that you were talking to about getting rid of it?
I think my cousin Rusky.
And what was it exactly, based on your interview with the police, that made you think they were going to look at you as a suspect, that is?
I don't know. It's just that, black man sitting in the police station. I just felt awkward, felt weird the whole time I was there. And
so you did, in fact, engage in efforts to get rid of that stolen vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, notwithstanding your efforts, you never did get rid of the vehicle, right?
No, I never did get rid of it.
In fact, at some point, TPD seized it and executed a search warrant on it, right?
Yes, they have it now.
And same for your green truck?
Yes, sir.
And same for Malika's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And they processed all that?
Yes, sir.
And found no evidence of anything related to the crimes?
No, sir.
And none of those vehicles had been wiped down, washed down, anything like that, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. So to this day, they still have that white Monte Carlo?
Yes.
All right. I wanted to ask you too about you mentioned this a little bit earlier, the fact that you'd been shot.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what that was about. How did that go down?
I was working in Alabama at the time, and my cousin was in Long Beach, Mississippi, and he called me and told me that, that he was having an issue with some guys out there and wanted to know if I could have his back. So I was like an hour and a half away, 2 hours from where he was. So I drove down there to make sure that he was okay. And, one thing led to another. One of the guys pulled a firearm and started shooting, and me and my cousin ducked behind the truck or whatever and started shooting too.
Okay. What weapon were you shooting with at that time?
I had a .32 revolver.
Okay. And this is back in July of 2010?
Yes, sir. July 31st, matter of fact.
Okay. So you got shot during that shootout, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what happened to the gun after that?
I gave it to my cousin, and he brought it back with him to Louisiana.
Okay, why did you get rid of that gun?
Well, I didn't want the police to find it on me when I went to the hospital, knowing I'd been in a shootout, and I told him to hold on to it just in case he needed, make sure nobody hurt him or anything, harm him.
Okay. Tell me what the nature of your injuries were after you got shot.
I got shot like I guess it's like an inch under my heart. I can feel my heartbeat when I touch the bullet hole. It was with a 45. Once I got shot, they removed the bullet out of my groin, so they had to do an incision like 8 or 9 inches from, I guess, the bottom of my chest all the way down past my belly button.
That's what that big scar on the pictures we saw was from, that surgery?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When was that surgery performed, roughly?
July 31st.
It was the day you were shot?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have, as of the time of the murders in this case, did you have any physical limitations on you at that point?
Yes, I was on light duty. I couldn't lift too many heavy objects. So I couldn't bend over. Like I can squat down, but I couldn't just bend over just head first.
And why exactly was that?
It still hurt my stomach when I just bend straight over.
So you hadn't yet returned to lifting full weight or anything along those lines?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about the day after the murder. How and when did you find out that Brandy and Javante had been killed?
It was the day after the murders. I went to my friend Adam's house. When I came home from his house, I had already planned to bring my youngest son, Malachi, to get his hair braided. I picked the boy.
Let's talk about Adam for a second. You said you went down to his house.
Yes, sir.
When and how did the plan to hang out at Adam's house develop?
Like the week before, the murders happened on Friday. We came back into town on Sunday, and while we were coming back from a job, he rode with me to the job because he didn't have a driver's license. He rode with me from the job here, and we were talking about going back to his house, fixing his dog line. I told him I wanted to shoot the bow and arrow. He was telling me he got his son a new bow, and I told him I wanted to try it because I wanted to go hog hunting. I told him one day over the weekend I'll try to make it over because during the week it's not going to happen because I got too much stuff to do.
And that you're saying that was the Sunday prior to the murders?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you got there, what did you all end up doing? Got to Adam's house, that is. What did you all end up doing?
We did a little bit of everything. We sat around, talked, had a little fire going, shot the bow and arrow. We played some music, threw the football around with his oldest son a little bit. We walked around. He showed me where his hunting stands were, where he had some kind of feed post set up for where deer or hogs or whatever would come out.
At some point, did you guys use the bow, shoot the arrows, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, sir.
And how were you doing? I mean, in terms of what success were you having?
Well, not that great. It's kind of hard to pull it back. It had a lot of tension to it, so it kind of hurt a little bit to pull it back. But once I got it pulled back, I let it go. Like I said, I missed target most of the time, but it was fun.
Where were the arrows going when you would miss the target?
Right into the bushes.
All right.
Right behind the target or next to the target in the bushes.
And were you having to reach into the bushes to retrieve them?
Yes, sir.
We saw a few little scratches on your forearms and all that when the state was introducing pictures. Is that what those scratches were from?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you finish up at Adam's house at some point, and you had started to tell me that you were taking your son to get his hair done. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know about what time that was?
No, I really don't remember.
I mean, are we talking morning or is it afternoon?
It was afternoon.
Okay.
Probably a little bit after lunch.
So then how exactly did you find out about Brandy and Javante?
When I called the girl who does my son's hair, she was actually braiding my hair and his hair. But she was just doing his hair that day. So when I called her about getting his hair done, she told me what happened.
Okay. During that conversation, did she already know that Javante was dead or not yet?
No, she told me that people were saying that they believe Javante was with Kalo, which is the guy who Brandy would sometimes tell me was Javante's daddy whenever me and her got into arguments.
Okay. So at that point, you believed Javante was still alive?
Yes, sir.
At some point, did you find out that he was deceased as well?
Yes, sir. So when I called her to make the appointment, she told me about the incident. When I got my two sons to her house, and once I got in there, she pulled me to the side and let me know that he was in the house with them.
Now, there's been talk about the fact that you didn't show a lot of emotion during your interview with Investigator Lewis. Can you just kind of tell us what your feelings were, how you were processing their deaths and all that at the time that you were doing your interview with Investigator Lewis?
Well, first of all, when she first told me it happened with Brandy and the twins, I already had my sons in the truck with me, and I felt flabbergasted, but I couldn't just pull over and cry because I had my sons in the truck with me. I raised them from day one. Men not supposed to cry, so I held my tears in. I kept moving forward.
When you say that, are you talking about that's how you were raised, or that's how your boys were raised?
That's how I was raised, but that's how I raised them because that's how I was raised.
Okay, so when you said that's how you raised them, you're talking about Malachi and Trey?
Yes.
Okay. Why was that? Why did you raise them not to show emotion? Why were you raised not to show emotion?
I assume because that's how my daddy was raised.
Okay. Is that kind of what how you would deal with stress and bad things that happened in general in life?
Yes. When I was younger, I used to get mad and cry a lot. Tears would run down my eyes. I might get a whipping, or they might hit me in the arm. Hey, men not supposed to cry. Boy, dry your eyes. So eventually, the older I got, I just learned how to channel it and just hold it in and just deal with whatever frustrations I had on the inside instead of letting everybody see what's really going on with me.
Okay. Is that kind of the same way you were processing what happened to Brandy and Javante and the twins?
Yes, sir. And my son Jalik that died a year before that.
That's how you dealt with his passing as well?
Yes, sir.
So when you were dealing with Investigator Lewis, what were your feelings about Brandy's passing, the twins' passing, Javante's passing at that time, at the time when you were talking to Investigator Lewis?
It was hard to process because, for one, I felt like I was being cornered. I don't feel like they were there questioning me about, I don't think they was there trying to get my assistance or help or whatever. I feel like they were, pointing the finger at me, so to speak. So the whole time I was there, I kind of felt cornered. I felt like I was a suspect, so to speak.
And what do you remember exactly what that was based on? Your feeling that you were being cornered or looked at as a suspect?
Just being a black man inside of a small room with two white guys with guns. I was kind of scared, intimidated a little bit. So.
I guess let me ask you this. Did you go in voluntarily to meet with Investigator Lewis?
Yes, sir.
On multiple occasions? Well, I guess
yes,
it was
sir.
2 occasions, right?
Yes,
on the 20th, the day of the murder?
And the 30th.
Yes, the 30th was the second time? Okay. And that was the first meeting, the interview on the 20th, where you had you take off your shirt and take the pictures and all that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Took DNA swabs, all that.
You voluntarily provided a DNA swab at that time?
Yes.
Okay. Just a few minutes ago, you heard that phone call being played, and one of the things that you said to Malika was, that you had given your life up for her. What was, I guess, first of all, what are you talking about, and what is your relationship with Malika at that point?
Well, at that point, well, first of all, what I was talking about was I'm in the police station. the officer, Lewis, I believe his name, he's asking me 100 times, did you see Brandy? Did you talk to Brandy? Did you talk to Brandy? What about these other girls? What about these other? I'm like, man, I didn't talk to anybody. I'm not cheating my wife. I ain't talked to nobody. I ain't talked to no other female, no nothing. If I would have just told him, look, yes, I was cheating on my wife. I was talking to Brandy. I talked to Natasha. I talked to Kim. I talked to all these different females. Then I think he would have seen that I was telling the truth. And, you know, like I said, I wouldn't be here today.
That's what you think in retrospect.
That's what I feel.
In retrospect. But you, at the time, you lied to him, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Because I honestly didn't think that me lying to him about having sex with a bunch of different women would, you know, result in me being arrested for murder.
And you didn't just lie about Brandy, right? You lied about Natasha. He asked you specifically about her?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you think it was necessary? Like, what concern did you have about being truthful with Investigator Lewis about your affairs with all these women? Why did you think that Malika was going to find out about that?
I'm like, I figured they were going to tell her. Or they would find out eventually. She would find out eventually through them. I don't know. I just didn't feel like them knowing anything about who I'm having sex with had anything to do with somebody getting killed.
Okay. You didn't think that would be relevant to their investigation?
No, I didn't.
Okay. That was a lie that you persisted in throughout your interviews with them, correct? Even after they confronted you about the 408 phone?
Yes, sir.
You never gave in and just told them, yeah, that's my phone. Yeah, I'm hooking up with all these women.
No, sir.
Okay. I think that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Let's take a lunch break. We'll let you step out with the bailiff. Let's be back ready to go at 1:30, please. Either side need it.
Yes, sir.
We'll see y'all at 1:30.